Hello and welcome to the special edition of Strait Talk from the Presidential Palace in Ankara. I'm Ayşe Süberker. In the first 4 months of the year, Turkey has seen dramatic changes in its relations with key allies and adversaries alike. As the coronavirus pandemic continues to upend the world, national interests have often clashed with global priorities. That is especially true when it comes to relations between NATO allies, Turkey and the US. In his first 100 days as president, Joe Biden has shifted US foreign policy, moving away from his predecessors. And those changes have directly affected its ties with Turkey. To understand where relations could be headed and other key priorities for Ankara, I spoke with Turkey's Vice President Fuat Oktay. We discussed everything from Biden's recent departure from decades of US policy to the latest talks on a divided Cyprus. And it's been 1 decade since the first Syrian refugees arrived in Turkey. We touched on how much has changed since then. Hello, Mr. Vice President. It's good to speak with you. We have heard the reaction from Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and other senior officials regarding President Biden's decision and announcement on the events of 1915. What's your take on that, and why do you think the Biden administration has opted to take or make this decision now?
Well, first of all, just let me tell you that it's a great honor to have you here. It's great to be with you indeed. It's unfortunate indeed to have such an announcement. This is an issue indeed that has been discussed and somehow on the agenda, especially of the Western world. But somehow the US has taken the lead this year, and especially Biden has taken the lead and made such an unfortunate announcement. To me, just one word: domestic politics. Nothing else.
Is it because of the United States is having problems within its country? So is this why?
This is first reason. And the second, I strongly believe that the Biden himself has made has declared that U.S. will come back. U.S. will come back to the scene of the international world. So I guess he's trying to use such a phenomenon as a tool, one of the tools to come back to one part of the world. And I strongly believe that these two reasons are totally the wrong start for him and for the US foreign policy. This is not a political issue as we have always been claiming. This has to be based upon the facts. So the facts of the history. So this has to be based upon the proofs. So without having no proofs, without making your decision based upon any type of kind of like facts, all of a sudden you come back and make a political statement. So I just shortly I will claim that it's an unfortunate announcement and not a visionary one.
Okay, so Mr. Vice President, why do you think the international community has been ignoring Turkey's calls to set up an international commission to examine the two countries' archives, and what do the archives actually say?
Isn't it simple? I mean, it's so simple that even the primary school student will understand Turkey's proposition of settling a committee formed by the historians, not by the politicians. Politicians might move and will move based upon the tendency of the political reasons. Just because of the lobbies, just because of the promises made to those lobbies, the Armenian or Armenian affected lobbies, You cannot make a historic decision, and you cannot claim a nation responsible from a genocide. Genocide, the term genocide itself is not an easy word to use for anyone. If a genocide word has to be used, that has to be used for the United States, not for Turkey. There are many, many examples for it within the borders of the United States and also outside of the United States. You cannot find a single proof showing the atrocities made by Turks, not only today, but through the history as well, that can be called genocide. Even the 1948 Convention, UN Convention, basically refers to it as say that genocide is a term narrowly defined and has to be based upon the proofs and
evidence.
Either the proofs or evidence, basically.
So,
either through the court decisions, international court decisions, not by local courts, of course.
So moving forward, what consequences will Biden's decision will have on Turkey-US relations? Have ties been damaged beyond repair?
Well, there are already certain issues indeed that we have been discussing, and that's very well known to the entire world. Certain issues between the US and Turkey. While we are trying our best to open new channels of communications, and while we were hoping that this might be a new beginning for the new era, for the US and Turkish relations, again, this decision has brought an extra complexity to the relations. You know, we do have an issue of US aid to terrorism, like PKK, YPG, and PYD within and outside of our borders, bringing tons of weapons openly and putting the pictures, photos of those terrorists on the Pentagon's or on the US official web pages just recently, within the last week or so, showing basically US military and the terrorists hand in hand. So this is a real issue that we are trying to resolve during the last decades or so. This is the main issue between the two countries. Another issue is the FETÖ. FETÖ having the head of the terrorist organization living in US and US not doing anything about it, trying to putting them into the same pot, makes it a little hard.
Yeah, you just drew a grim picture about the future of Turkey-US relations, but you say...
What I am trying to do is, I am trying to draw the picture as...
it is.
Not as it is, but as best as possible, so that we have to start. There are always opportunities and possibilities for which we have been totally concentrated on. Even during this decision, the two presidents have talked to each other.
They're going to meet
President
in
Erdogan
June.
and Biden has talked to each other. And they're going to be meeting during the NATO summit in June. So hopefully that will be a new beginning for
What
the two
should
countries.
be the first step, Mr.
So
Vice
the
President?
reason I have started with a dark picture is that if you always look into the dark side of the picture, that's the world you'll see for the future relations as well. But what we claim is that Turkey is the country in the region that any country in the entire world has to be with to develop or implement any policy in the region. That's the reason I was trying to talk about like F-35s and S-400s as added problems to
already existing ones.
Right. So what we are trying to say is that let's put them aside. Let's differentiate them. Let's handle them one by one. Let's form the related committees, work on them technically, and look into a brighter future. And then work on the potentials between the two countries. Remember, like $100 billion trade agreement or trade goal between the two countries that was put forward during the two presidents of the two countries again. So Turkey does not go like from one president to another president. So there's, when we make a deal, we make that deal with a country.
But I believe that Turkey's, the fight against the YPG, MPYD remains to be Turkey's priority.
Definitely, definitely, because it's directly related to our security, directly related to our own people's security and our border security. But again, to have a new beginning, we still look forward that the US administration will reconsider their decision and should not take the Turkey as a granted partner. Yes, we will do our best, as we do with all the countries, and we are the partners for years indeed with US. But the relations again has to be reset, if that's the right term to put forward. So we have to have a new beginning in June. So we look forward, the US administration, to reconsider
their decisions. So, Mr. Vice President, let's move on the issue of divided Cyprus. The latest round of talks in Geneva have ended, but they ended without enough common ground to resume formal negotiations. What's your evaluation of the outcome? Was it expected?
Rather than expected or not, let me put it in this way. I am personally very much involved into the Cyprus issue indeed, not only from the political side, from international political side, but from the daily living of people in the island. The basic rights that the Turkish Cypriots are looking for indeed. Very basic rights. Right now, currently, if you do not have even the basic kind of like communication or transportation from going from one place to another place, rights. What else can you expect from so-called your partner? There are certain issues indeed. Equality in all areas. This is a human right. As a human, being equally treated, locally and internationally. Sovereignty. So this is extremely important. And,
but isn't it the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus a sovereign state?
It is.
Okay.
But when you basically come to the international arena, unfortunately, except Turkey, none of the countries has realized TRNC as the sovereign country. But indeed, that is the reality in the island, at the island. There are two states. There are two separate democracies, two separate governments.
And identities.
And there is a border between the two countries. There are two different laws to govern those two parts. So basically what the Turkish Cypriots are looking forward is a sovereign and equal states rather than going forward and talking or discussing a federal structure like we have done so far, almost for the last, not only during the last 46 years, but since 1960s.
So do you think that such
right
meetings
now we said it's enough.
Are
Enough
not useful
is enough.
anymore? Okay.
Right. So let's look into a new vision. This 5+1 meeting, 5+ UN meeting was about looking to see whether there is a ground or hope for a new vision. So what the Turkish TRNC president Tatar has brought is a new vision to the table indeed. Greek side, Greek Cypriots did not bring any new proposal to the table indeed. They came with exactly what they were saying and what they've been saying for the last 50 to 80 years almost, like since for the last 60 years.
So what's your opinion? Has the reopening of Marash revealed that the Greek government has actually no intention whatsoever negotiating with the Turkish sides? How did it impact already strained relations?
To start with, Marash is a TRNC territory. Right now, like before, as I've mentioned, rather than discussing the two communities' partnership, right now our vision is to talk about the two states, two sovereign and independent states' relations, local and international relations. So with this sovereign state, independent state, Marash is a TRNC territory. Doesn't have to take any kind, doesn't have to ask, or doesn't have to basically ask to anyone indeed, neither to Greek Cypriots nor to others like EU or others indeed.
Why was
to
this
open
harsh
Marash.
reaction
So they have
then?
opened the beach side of Marash to the use of their own people, not only to Turkish, but to anyone who would like to go there. Marash was one of the best touristic places, not only in Cyprus, but in the entire region. So what they have been claiming is that, well, why should we close such a beauty? We have closed it for the last 46 years, almost half a century. So what has happened? Right now, nobody lives there, and when you get into the town, it's like a war zone.
So why do you think
So right
the
now
Greek
they
side,
would like to bring it back to the economy, and as Turkey, we
This is
totally support it.
Turkey's side, but why do you think that the Greek sides reacted that much, and why they were furious about that?
The same reason, because they do not recognize TRNC, they do not recognize Turkish Cypriots' equal rights, and they do not recognize the Turkish Cypriots or TRNC's sovereignty and independency. They believe that they are the sole owner of the entire island. They are the only decision maker, and they are the only owner of all the resources. They are the only human being at the island. None of the others should have any equal rights at all. This is not acceptable. So for the Marash, basically the opening decision, that will continue. if the TRNC takes further decisions, we will definitely back that decision.
What's
will be
next for the
TRNC
island in
presidency
general? I
and the
understand.
government.
Sorry, what's next for the island?
Well, the next is already there exists a different state over there. As Turkey, we accept and we recognize that it's a sovereign and independent state, a democratic state. So the next, from our point of view, will be that TRNC side economically should come stronger. And by coming with a new vision and presenting it at the UN table to the rest of the world, with the Greek side as well. So right now they are going to be backing their visionary decision, and basically Turkey and TRNC will be together in this
adventure
indeed.
So, Mr. Vice President, April the 29th marks the 10th anniversary of the arrival of first Syrian refugees who were fleeing Bashar al-Assad's, the Syrian regime's atrocities. What has the last decade taught Turkey and the world when it comes to Syrian refugees? Because I know that you are very well experienced in handling the asylum seekers and the displaced people. So what do you say after 10 years?
Well, again, if I have to make a very short statement, if I have to summarize it, no matter what the conflict is all about, it's always the people. It's always the individuals who pay the price. Assad is still there. The government is still there. They enjoy basically, they enjoy the advantages even of the conflict. The international community are there, trying to make their own statements at the field, but the individuals, people, are the ones who suffer. Can you imagine living outside of your own house, outside of your own home for the last 10 years and not knowing what will happen next? This is exactly what's going on over there. So as Turkey, having a large border over there, and Turkey is like those individuals, indeed, like those people who have suffered and who have been suffering from this conflict for the last decade, Turkey has been suffering from it as well, suffering from the terrorism side, because we have been fighting heavily we have been fighting with Daesh over there, we have been fighting with PKK, YPG, and PYD over there. So Turkey is the one who pays the price. So we have been hosting nearly 4 million Syrians within our borders.
So how do you think relations with the EU could move forward when it comes to the migrants issue? More cooperation? Are you hopeful?
Of course, more cooperation.
Okay.
Turkey cannot continue supporting all those, not only the Syrians, but in general in Turkey is the highest refugee hosting country in the entire world. Turkey cannot do it anymore. So for those migrants who would like to go to other countries like EU or Greece, you can see it, all the world is watching it indeed, the pushbacks, illegal pushbacks. You see the Greek forces kind of pushing back the migrants and basically leaving them at the middle of the sea to death. This is inhumane indeed. And the EU Frontex, border security, Frontex is somehow is involved into this. Otherwise, they should have prevented it. So when it comes to the relations, definitely we will look forward to more cooperation with EU and basically expect them to put more pressure on Greek not to have pushbacks anymore, because it's really forget about anything else, but it's inhumane just living and pushing people to death in the middle of the Aegean Sea.
All right, Mr. Vice President, unfortunately we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for receiving us.
It's great to have you again. It's great to be with you.
Thank you.
Have a